Story 1, The House on Hangman's Hill. Part 1. The first thing Ava noticed about the house wasn't the hill, or the view, or the way the forest leaned too close. It was the sound. Even with the windows shut, the wind carried through the siding, a low, uneven hum, like breath drawn through old teeth. Her younger sister Ellie didn't seem to mind. "It's cozy," she said, setting down a box of stuffed animals on the living room floor. Ava smiled weakly. Cozy's one word for it. The Victorian semi on Hangman's Hill had been on the rental market for months, cheap, fully furnished, walking distance to Salem State. The listing said character property with period charm. Ava's mother had called it a steal. Ava called it drafty. By sunset, the movers were gone, the house was quiet, and the two sisters were surrounded by towers of boxes. Ellie, all freckles and restless energy at 12, clambered up the narrow staircase. "Which room's mine?" "End of the hall," Ava said, following. "Not the one with the attic door." "Why not?" Ava looked up. The pull-down ladder in the ceiling hatch hung loose, rope dangling like a tail. "Because it gives me the creeps." Ellie grinned. "Creeps are kind of your thing." Ava rolled her eyes, but the truth was she did feel something, a heaviness in the air, as if the house had been holding its breath for too long. That night, the first rain of October came hard. The roof groaned, wind scraping the branches against the siding. Ava unpacked in her room, a space of pale wallpaper and an iron bed that squealed at every move. She opened her laptop, trying to ignore the sounds outside. Then she saw it. Footprints. Not hers. Not Ellie's. Pressed into the wet earth outside her window, two distinct sets, leading from the woods to the back door. They stopped there. Didn't go in. Didn't go away. Just stopped. Ava stared until her reflection replaced the view. Morning brought sunlight, dust motes, and the illusion of safety. Probably the landlord, Ava told herself while making coffee. Checking the oil tank. Or an animal. Ellie came downstairs in pajamas. "Why were you up last night?" "I wasn't." "Yes, you were." "I heard footsteps." Then the back door squeaked. Ava froze mid-stir. "What time?" "I dunno." "3? You must have dreamed it." Ellie shrugged, munching cereal. "Maybe." But that afternoon, when Ava got back from her part-time shift at the library, the footprints were there again, darker, fresher. Same path. Same stop at the back door. Same pivot back to the woods. She took photos this time. Sent one to their mom. Her mom texted back, probably kids cutting through the yard. "Don't overthink." Ava wanted to believe that. But the steps were perfectly spaced, adult-sized, heel-to-toe precision. No scuffing. No slouch. Whoever it was walked with purpose. That night, she double-checked every lock. Ellie laughed when she saw the kitchen chair braced under the door handle. "Paranoid much?" "You can thank whoever's been doing laps around our house." Ellie wrinkled her nose. "Maybe it's the ghost." "Funny." "No, really. Mrs. Chandler, the neighbor across the road, said this used to be an orphanage. Before it was a rental." Ava sighed. "Don't start," she said. "One of the kids." "Ellie." Her sister stopped. Ava forced a smile. "Go brush your teeth." Ellie made a face but obeyed. By midnight, the wind had died. The house lay still except for the ticking of the old wall clock. Ava woke suddenly, no reason, no noise. Just that instinctive jolt when the air feels wrong. The hall light was still on, flickering faintly. Then came a creak from the landing. She sat up, listening. Another step. She got out of bed and opened her door. "Ellie?" No answer. The sound came again, slower this time, deliberate. The hallway stretched dim and narrow, wallpaper peeling like old skin. Ellie's door was half open. Ava pushed it gently. Empty bed. Sheets thrown back. Her heart thudded. Ellie? Something moved at the end of the corridor, a small shape in the gloom. Ava exhaled in relief. Ellie, you scared me. What are you doing? The girl didn't answer. She was standing under the attic hatch, eyes half shut, arms limp at her sides. Sleepwalking. Ava had seen her do it once before, after their dad's funeral, walking down the hallway muttering something under her breath. Hey, Ava said softly, stepping closer. Let's go back to bed. Ellie didn't move. The rope from the attic ladder swayed gently beside her face, even though no window was open. Ava reached for her shoulder. Ellie turned her head, eyes still closed, and whispered, barely audible. He's upstairs. Ava froze. Who? No answer. Then Ellie's hand rose, trembling, as if reaching toward the rope. Ava grabbed her, pulling her back hard. Wake up. Ellie gasped, eyes snapping open. What, Ava? It's okay, Ava said, holding her tight. You were sleepwalking again. Ellie blinked around, confused. Why am I? What's that noise? A faint sound echoed above them. Boards shifting. Something like a slow exhale. Ava glanced up at the ceiling hatch. We're not checking. Back to bed. They went to Ava's room instead, locking the door. She pushed her desk against it for good measure. They lay there in silence, both pretending to sleep. At 3:10 a.m., something brushed the ceiling, a soft, dragging scrape. Sunlight came too soon. Ava woke to the smell of coffee and Ellie humming in the kitchen like nothing had happened. Maybe it really had been a dream. Maybe stress. Maybe grief wearing a new face. She told herself that until she saw the hallway. The attic hatch was open. The ladder unfolded, reaching the floor. And at the end of the rope, swaying slightly in the draft, was a loop, a noose tied with deliberate care. The police came. They checked for signs of intrusion. None. No footprints inside, one officer said. Probably just an old rope that slipped loose. Ava pointed out the perfect coil, the symmetry of the knot. That's not slipped. That's tied. He gave her a professional smile. It's a 100-year-old house. Things settle. She bit back the urge to scream. After they left, Ellie sat cross-legged on the sofa, pale and quiet. Maybe we should move, she said. Ava nodded. Yeah. But they didn't. They couldn't. Lease, money, college. That night, Ava nailed the attic hatch shut. Then she set her phone on record, camera facing the hall. When she checked the footage the next morning, the timestamp read 2:58 a.m. For 10 minutes, nothing happened. Then the attic hatch moved, just a fraction, nails creaking. And through the gap came a small hand. Not Ellie's. Too small. Too pale. It rested there for a moment, fingers flexing, then withdrew. The hatch stopped moving. The camera cut to static. Part 2. The next morning, the house was too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you whisper without realizing why. Ava sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone again and again. The video was still there, 10 solid minutes of stillness, then the attic hatch creaking open, the small hand, the static. She'd watched it 5 times. Each time, her body reacted the same, goosebumps, rising heartbeat, the taste of iron in her mouth. She deleted it. Then, 2 minutes later, she restored it from the trash. Ellie patted in, rubbing sleep from her eyes. You were up all night, she said. Ava forced a smile. Couldn't sleep. Ellie poured cereal, yawning. You're jumpy. You keep checking your phone. I'm fine. No, you're not. You've been staring at the ceiling since breakfast yesterday. Ava opened her mouth to argue, but the words died. The truth was, she didn't trust her own senses anymore. The footage. The sound. The rope. The house itself. Ellie was still talking, but Ava barely heard her. Outside, through the kitchen window, something had changed. The footprints. They weren't just coming from the woods now. They were leading back inside. Later that afternoon, Ava crossed the street to the neighbor's house. Mrs. Chandler, early 70s, sharp-eyed, cardigan always buttoned to the chin, answered the door like she'd been expecting her. "I thought you might come by," the woman said. "People usually do, once the house starts moving." Ava blinked. "Excuse me?" Mrs. Chandler smiled without warmth. "Come in, dear." The house smelled of old roses and lemon polish. Porcelain dolls lined the hallway shelves, every one of them facing the door. Ava sat stiffly on the edge of the floral couch. "It was an orphanage," Mrs. Chandler said. "Back before the highway. My grandmother used to bring them bread." Said the matron was a bitter woman, Miss Harrow, I think. Strict as winter. "What happened?" Ava asked. Mrs. Chandler's gaze drifted to the window. "One of the boys died. Some said it was an accident. Others, not so much. They found him in the attic. Hung himself with the curtain cord. At least, that's what the papers said." Ava's mouth went dry. "You've seen the photos?" Mrs. Chandler nodded slowly. "My husband collected old local archives before he passed. Police photos, articles, census lists. There was one picture, grainy thing, from 1926. The rope was tied exactly like the one you've got hanging now." Ava stared. "I nailed that hatch shut." Mrs. Chandler smiled faintly. "Then I'd suggest you check again." Back home, the air felt heavier. Like the house knew she'd been asking questions. She climbed the stairs with a hammer still in her hand. The attic hatch was closed. The nails she'd driven in the night before were all there, flattened neatly, as if someone had tapped them back in place from the other side. Ava exhaled slowly. "You're losing it," she whispered to herself. "You're tired, that's all." But when she went to her desk, her phone was already recording. She hadn't left it that way. She stopped the video. The screen flashed the current timestamp, 3:03 a.m. Except it wasn't 3:03. It was 5:12 in the afternoon. Her stomach dropped. She replayed the few seconds of footage. It showed her bedroom, lit only by the street lamp glow through the curtains. She was asleep. The door creaked open. A figure stepped inside. Small. Barefoot. Pale. The camera shook, then cut out. She deleted the file and turned the phone face down. That night, rain began again around midnight. The walls seemed to pulse with it. Ava lay awake, staring at the ceiling. From the next room, Ellie's voice came softly, "Ava? Yeah? I heard someone crying." Ava sat up. "Where?" Ellie's voice trembled. "Upstairs." They met in the hallway, both barefoot, both pale. The sound was faint, like a child's whimper, muffled through boards. It came from behind the nailed attic hatch. Ava whispered, "Stay here." She climbed onto the chair under the hatch, pressing her ear against the wood. The crying was clearer now, thin, rhythmic, heartbreakingly small. She whispered, "Who's up there?" The crying stopped. Then a whisper, so close it could have been inside her ear. "Don't tell her I fell." Ava stumbled back, nearly dropping the flashlight. Ellie grabbed her hand. "What did it say?" Ava didn't answer. She dragged Ellie to her room, slammed the door, and shoved a dresser in front of it. They stayed like that until the first hint of dawn seeped through the curtains. The next day, Ava went to Salem State's Archive Library. Local history, the librarian asked, glancing at her ID. We've got the microfilm reels and digital scans. Any specific year? 1926, Ava said. Orphanage fire, or death. The librarian raised an eyebrow. You must mean the Harrow House tragedy. Creepy stuff. 2 kids vanished. One was found later in the woods, hung himself, they said. The other was never found. Ava's throat tightened. A girl? He nodded. 8 or 9. Ellie Harrow. The matron's niece. Ava froze. Her name was Ellie? Yeah. Weird coincidence, huh? He clicked through digital records, then turned the monitor toward her. Here's one of the old photos. Ava leaned in. The image was grainy black and white, an attic, ropes dangling, police flash catching on something pale in the background. She squinted. The shape was blurred, but it wasn't the boy. It was a little girl, half visible, head tilted, looking straight at the camera. In the corner of the frame, just above her shoulder, a faint reflection of a second face appeared in the attic window. Ava's own blood seemed to turn cold. Can I print this? She asked quietly. Sure thing, the librarian said. You studying history? Something like that. That night, Ava taped the printout to her wall. Ellie came in, holding her sketch pad. What's that? Something I found at school. Ellie tilted her head. She looked sad. She was. Ellie stepped closer, frowning. Her name's Ellie. Ava looked sharply at her. How did you know that? Her sister blinked. You told me. I didn't. Ellie paused. Then she did. Ava's voice went cold. Who? Ellie pointed to the ceiling. The girl in the attic. Ava tried to laugh it off, but her sister's expression didn't change. She says she fell, Ellie whispered. And they didn't mean to leave her there. She wants her ribbon back. Ava's stomach twisted. What ribbon? Ellie's gaze drifted to the stairs. The red one she wore. It's still up there. That night, Ava couldn't stop thinking about the rope, the photo, the voice. At 2:50 a.m., she finally stood, grabbed the hammer again, and climbed onto the chair. The hatch looked different tonight, edges darker, as if soaked in shadow. Her hand shook as she pried the first nail loose. The second came free with a groan. The third fell by itself. The wood swung down an inch. The air that spilled out was cold and sweet, like rain-soaked soil. She lifted the hatch. The flashlight cut through dust motes and old insulation. The attic was small, triangular, half full of boxes and broken furniture. At the far end, a rope hung from one of the beams, swaying slightly. And beneath it, half buried under a tarp, something glinted red. Ava crawled forward, every nerve screaming to stop. She pulled the tarp aside. A child's ribbon. Silk. Deep red. Still tied in a bow. She reached for it. And felt a small hand close around her wrist. Ava screamed, jerking back so fast she hit her head on the beam. The flashlight clattered away, rolling across the floor. The hand was gone. From the darkness behind the beam came a whisper. You brought her back. She scrambled down the ladder, slammed the hatch shut, and backed away until her shoulders hit the wall. Her heart hammered, breath ragged. She stayed like that until dawn's light turned the wallpaper silver. When she finally dared to look up, the ribbon was lying neatly on the floor at her feet. Part 3. By morning, Ava had already made up her mind. She was done pretending the house was normal. The ribbon lay coiled on her desk like a heartbeat she could see. Ellie was still asleep, sunlight across her face, breathing slow. Ava didn't want to wake her until she understood what she'd unleashed. She called the library first. Hi, this is Ava Patel, I was researching the Harrow House records yesterday. Do you still have the property files? The librarian hesitated. Those? They were moved years ago. City archives, basement level. Can I see them? Today? Yes. Right now. The archive smelled of paper rot and rain-soaked concrete. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead. A clerk led her to a narrow aisle. H for Harrow, he said, handing her a thin grey box. Only one folder left. Fire destroyed the rest in the 80s. Inside were brittle photographs, handwritten reports, and a yellowed letter sealed with wax. The envelope read, "To whom it may concern, regarding the tragedy at Harrow House, 1926. Ava unfolded it carefully. The script was spidery and deliberate. It was not the boy who hung himself. It was the girl. Miss Harrow covered it up to keep the orphanage open. She said he was wicked. But she was the one who tied the knot. The child's name was Ellie Harrow. The mark still hangs above the beam." Ava stared at the final line, her pulse quickening. The rope remembers. When she returned home, Ellie was drawing at the kitchen table. "Hey," Ava said softly, "you okay?" Ellie didn't look up. "She showed me her room." Ava froze. "Who did?" "The girl. From upstairs." Ava forced herself to move closer. The drawing was detailed, too detailed for a 12-year-old, the attic, rope dangling, a small bed by the wall, sunlight pouring through a cracked window. In the middle, two figures, one small, one taller, both holding the same red ribbon. Ellie said, "She says she wants to stay. She doesn't like being alone." Ava swallowed hard. "Ellie, pack a bag." They stayed the night at a motel off Highway 22. Ava barely slept. Each time she closed her eyes she saw that letter, that line, "The rope remembers." By morning she'd decided, she was calling the landlord, breaking the lease, whatever it cost. But when she drove back to the house to collect their things, a white van was parked outside. Two workers in university maintenance uniforms were hauling boxes down the path. "Excuse me?" Ava called. "Who are you with?" One of them straightened. "Salem State. They bought the property last month. Renovating it for campus storage." Her chest tightened. "Already?" "Yeah, we are just clearing out the attic." Ava's breath caught. "Don't touch the rope." The man laughed. "Rope?" She pushed past him into the house. Dust floated in the shafts of light. Everything smelled different, fresher, emptier. The attic ladder was down. When she climbed up, the space was stripped bare except for the beam and the loop of rope still swaying gently. A student worker was standing beneath it, clipboard in hand. "You're not supposed to be here." The words died as he noticed the rope move by itself, slow and pendulum steady, though no breeze reached this high. Ava whispered, "It's her." The student blinked. "What?" Before she could answer, Ellie's voice came from below. "Ava?" Ava turned, and saw a small shape at the top of the stairs. Not her sister. A girl, hair in plaits, wearing a torn pinafore and a red ribbon around her wrist. Her feet didn't touch the floorboards. The ribbon unraveled, drifting toward Ava's hand like it recognized her. Ava whispered, "You, Ellie Harrow." The girl nodded once. "She made me fall." A gust of cold air swept through the attic, strong enough to snuff the light bulb. For an instant, Ava saw the shadow of a woman on the far wall, long skirt, arms crossed, eyes like pits. The child looked up at it, then back at Ava. "She can't have us now." And the rope snapped clean from the beam, dropping to the floor. The sound echoed like a breath released after 100 years. When Ava opened her eyes, she was sitting on the porch steps, the maintenance crew hovering nearby. One of them said she'd fainted. The attic, they said, was empty. No rope. No girl. Ellie ran to her, tears bright on her cheeks. Can we go home now? Ava nodded. Yeah. Let's go. They left Hangman's Hill for good that afternoon. 6 months later. Salem State University, Storage Building C, formerly the Harrow House. 2 students were unpacking archival boxes under the eaves. Creepy old place, one muttered. Smells like dust and rain. Yeah, the other said, tugging at a stuck drawer. They say it used to be an orphanage. Supposed to be haunted or something. The first student laughed. Sure. Because every college needs one. As she spoke, something tugged gently at her sleeve. She turned, thinking her friend was behind her. No one there. Just a faint scent of lavender and the whisper of a child's giggle in the rafters. Did you hear that? Her friend frowned. Hear what? A moment later, the old ceiling fan creaked to life by itself, blades turning slow, steady, like a pendulum in air. On the beam above it, etched faintly into the wood, was a single phrase. The rope remembers. Story 2, The Raker in the Meadow. Part 1. Bellingham, Washington, autumn, 1989. A neighborhood of cul-de-sacs and cul-de-dreams, where every backyard ran into the same tangled greenbelt behind Ashbrook Court. Robbie Whitman was 10 and perpetually restless. His mom called him a satellite kid, always orbiting the house, never landing for long. He'd built a fort out of old plywood and lawn chairs in the greenbelt clearing, just past where the blackberry bushes swallowed the chain-link fence. That Saturday, he'd gone there after breakfast with his Walkman, a peanut butter sandwich, and his dog-eared Goosebumps paperback. The sun filtered through misty clouds. A leaf blower whined somewhere down the block, the sound fading under the buzz of insects. Robbie was mid-bite when he heard it, the rhythmic scrape of metal against ground. He leaned over the fort wall. In the clearing beyond the trees, a man was raking leaves. He wasn't one of the neighbors. Too tall, too pale. Wearing a red flannel shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbow, copper hair glinting in the grey light. The rake moved slow, steady, deliberate. Robbie hesitated, watching. The man looked up. Their eyes met, for a second too long. Then the man smiled, not quite right. No need to be scared. Robbie's throat went dry. He ducked back into the fort, heart thudding. The rake kept scraping. Closer now. He stuffed the Walkman in his pocket and bolted, twigs snapping underfoot. The fence caught his jeans, tearing the knee, but he didn't stop until he'd vaulted into his backyard. He burst through the kitchen door. Mom! There's a man? But his mom was on the phone, cigarette smoldering in the ashtray. Robbie, sure, I'm talking to Grandma. Go wash up. He stood there, breathing hard, mud on his sneakers. When he looked back through the sliding glass door, the meadow was empty again. The rake sound had stopped. That night, Robbie dreamed of rustling leaves and whispering voices. He woke before dawn, convinced someone had been standing under his window. At breakfast, he said, there was a man behind the fence yesterday. His mom half listened, flipping pancakes. Maybe a groundskeeper. We don't have one. Well, maybe someone's uncle. It's the weekend. Robbie frowned. He said something to me. His mom smiled tiredly. Well, what did you say back? Nothing. Then don't worry about it. But Robbie did worry. All day, he caught himself glancing toward the greenbelt, the line of trees that hemmed in their world. Even from the driveway, he could see the path into the clearing, shadowed and still. On Monday, after school, Robbie and his best friend Tyler biked home together. You're full of it, Tyler said, spinning his handlebars. No one's out there. Swear to God, he was, Robbie said. Red hair. Like a rake salesman or something. Tyler laughed. A rake salesman? Whatever. Let's check. Robbie hesitated. Now? Yeah. Before it gets dark. They dropped their bikes by the fence and crawled through the hole at the base, the one they dug the year before when they pretended to be explorers. The air smelled like wet bark and grass. Their shoes squished on damp soil. The fort still stood, leaning, half collapsed. Robbie's Walkman lay where he dropped it, the earphones tangled in ivy. Tyler grinned. "Told you. No rake guy." Then he frowned. "Dude, what's that?" Near the far edge of the clearing, the rake stood upright, its tines buried in the earth. No sign of anyone around. Robbie whispered, "See? Told you." Tyler shrugged. "Could be anyone's." He walked over, grabbed the handle, and tugged. The rake didn't move. He pulled harder. Nothing. "Maybe it's stuck on a root," Robbie said. Tyler yanked once more, and the ground gave a faint pop, like suction breaking. When he lifted the rake, something came up with it. A torn strip of fabric, pale blue. Tyler dropped it fast. "Gross." Robbie stared. "What is that?" They backed away slowly. Behind them, leaves stirred, though there was no wind. Robbie turned. A shape was moving through the trees, slow and deliberate. Red hair. He didn't think. He just ran. That night, the news mentioned something about a local search operation. Robbie didn't catch all of it, but he saw the photo, 2 missing girls, last seen near Ashbrook Court. He couldn't breathe. Tyler called him an hour later. "You saw the news, right?" "Yeah." "They were found, well, kinda. Like, they found where they were. Police everywhere." Robbie gripped the phone tighter. "Where?" "Behind the fence." The words felt cold. "You mean the Greenbelt?" "Yeah. My mom said they had floodlights. Cops said it was a crawlspace under that old house next to the trail." Robbie whispered, "The red-haired guy?" "Dunno. They didn't show anyone. Just said they arrested somebody." After they hung up, Robbie sat by his window, watching the tree line. For the first time since he'd moved there, the Greenbelt felt smaller, like it was holding its breath. He tried to tell his mom again, but she was already asleep, TV flickering against the wall. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying the faintest metallic rasp. A rake dragging through wet leaves. 3 days later, the police knocked. 2 detectives, one tall, one tired. "You Robbie Whitman?" He nodded. "You mentioned seeing someone in the woods last week?" "Yeah. A man. Red hair." "Can you describe him?" Robbie tried, the voice, the eyes, the way he smiled like he knew something Robbie didn't. The taller detective took notes. "Thank you. We think you might have seen him before anyone else did." Robbie frowned. "Is he gone?" The detective exchanged a look with his partner. "He's in custody." They thanked him and left. But that night, when Robbie turned on the news again, the anchor said the man had been found dead in his cell. No details. Just that the case was under review. That weekend, rain hammered the rooftops. Robbie stayed inside, building Lego sets he didn't care about, flipping TV channels. Sometime after midnight, he got up for water. The kitchen light buzzed faintly. He glanced out the sliding glass door. The meadow was shining with rain, the fence glinting in streaks of silver. And there, near the edge of the Greenbelt, stood a figure. Tall. Still. Red hair plastered to his skull. He was holding the rake. The same rake. Robbie blinked hard, and the figure was gone. Only the wet grass moved where he'd stood. Part 2. 30 years later, Robbie Whitman came home to bury his mother. The drive from Seattle to Bellingham took less than 2 hours, but it felt like the whole trip was uphill, like gravity wanted him to turn back. The highway curled through evergreen slopes glazed with drizzle, grey sky pressed low. He hadn't been to Ashbrook Court since 1994. The street looked smaller now, narrower, the lawns half the size he remembered. The Whitman house sat near the cul-de-sac end, paint flaking, the "for sale" sign half buried in the flower bed. He parked at the curb and sat for a moment, watching rain bead on the windshield. In the mirror, the greenbelt still stretched behind the neighborhood, darker now, denser, as if it had grown teeth. He thought about the rake. About the man's eyes. About the way the police lights painted the woods red and blue that night. He had spent years convincing himself it hadn't been real. That memory was only a trick of fear. Now, as the engine ticked cool, that old sound came back to him, the scrape of metal on wet leaves. Inside, the house was silent. The smell hit first: mothballs, coffee grounds, old dust. His mother's perfume lingered faintly, lavender and cigarettes. He found the letter from the funeral home on the kitchen counter. Thursday, 11 a.m. St. Mark's Chapel. He opened the fridge out of habit, a single carton of milk, expired. When he shut it, something flickered at the edge of the backyard window. Movement. He leaned closer. Just rain, he told himself. Just branches. Still, he crossed to the door and slid it open. The cold air rushed in, clean and sharp. The fence was gone. In its place, the greenbelt sloped straight down into the meadow, taller, wilder, untrimmed for decades. And at the edge of the clearing, half buried in the mud, stood the rake. The handle was weathered gray, but the metal still caught the light. That night, Robbie slept in his childhood room. The wallpaper, faded blue stars, still clung to the walls. His old trophies gathered dust on the dresser. He lay there listening to the rain, to the refrigerator hum, to the faint rustle of wind through the grass. Sometime after midnight, he dreamed. He was back in the fort, age 10 again, holding his Walkman, the air full of that same leaf damp smell. The red-haired man was there, standing just beyond the clearing. But this time, the man wasn't holding the rake. He was holding something smaller. A strip of fabric. Pale blue. He held it out, like an offering. "No need to be scared," he whispered again. Then the dream bent sideways, sound collapsing, color draining, and Robbie woke gasping in the dark. The rain had stopped. But from outside came a sound he hadn't heard in 30 years. Scrape. Pause. Scrape. He sat up. The sound came from the yard. He forced himself to the window. The porch light flickered. At first he saw nothing, just wet grass, moonlight on puddles. Then, near the tree line, the rake moved. Slowly. Methodically. But no one was holding it. It scraped the earth on its own, tines glinting as if guided by invisible hands. Robbie stumbled back, tripping over a box of his mother's old clothes. The motion light blinked out, plunging the yard into darkness. When it came back on, the rake was gone. The funeral passed in a grey blur, hymns, condolences, damp tissues. Robbie stood through it all feeling like an imposter. Everyone talked about his mother's kindness, her smile, her baking. No one mentioned the night she'd refused to listen to him, the night the police came. Afterward, he drove to the cemetery with the florist's leftover bouquet. The gravesite was small, still raw with turned earth. He stood there a long time, unsure what to say. When he finally spoke, his voice came out low. "You remember him, don't you? You had too. He was right behind our fence. You told me to stop making things up." The wind picked up. A few leaves skittered across the marble headstones. "Guess you don't get to argue anymore," he said softly, and set the flowers down. He turned back toward the car, and stopped. Something red glinted between the graves. A single copper-colored leaf pinned under a small, flat stone. He bent down. The leaf was warm, though the air was cold. When he lifted it, the ground beneath was faintly indented, like something had been pressed there for a long time. Something about the way the stone sat, too deliberate, too recent, made his stomach twist. He put it back exactly as he'd found it. That night, he dreamed again. The rake scraping, closer this time. Then a voice, faint, genderless, saying, "It's your turn." He woke to static. The TV in the corner had turned itself on. The screen showed nothing but snow, though the set hadn't worked in years. He reached for the remote, and froze. There was dirt on his hands. Wet dirt. He looked down. Mud on his pajama knees. Bare feet cold. The back door was open. He stepped outside. Moonlight washed over the grass. The rake stood upright in the center of the yard again, its handle pointing toward the house. He walked closer, each step sinking into the wet ground. When he reached it, he noticed something caught on the tines. A photograph. Faded, water damaged, but still legible, 2 boys on bikes. Him and Tyler. Behind them, the edge of the greenbelt. Robbie turned it over. On the back, in handwriting that wasn't his, were 3 words. "Still raking, Robbie." The photo slipped from his fingers. He ran inside, slammed the door, and locked it. The scraping began again immediately. Slow. Patient. Like it knew he was listening. He didn't sleep. By dawn, fog had swallowed the neighborhood. When the sun burned through, the rake was gone. He checked the yard, nothing. Just damp soil and one perfect footprint. Bare. Human. Leading away from the house, into the greenbelt. He told himself it was a trick of drainage, a memory in the mud. But by evening, he'd packed his bag. As he was loading the trunk, something metallic clinked against the driveway. A single rake tine, snapped from the head, lay at his feet. He picked it up without meaning to. It was cold, but not rusty. He turned it over. Tiny letters were etched along the metal, Ashbrook Tool Co., 1989. He set it down carefully on the curb and drove away. As he reached the edge of town, his phone buzzed with a local news alert. Construction crews break ground behind Ashbrook Court for new development. Investigators uncover old crawlspace connected to unsolved 1989 kidnappings. He didn't want to click, but he did. The article mentioned 2 girls, a storage pit under a red-haired man's property, and remains believed to be decades old. At the bottom, a photo of the excavation site, the same clearing, only bare now. Except in the corner of the image, behind the police tape, Robbie saw something no one else seemed to notice. A shape. Tall. Thin. Copper hair glinting in the morning sun. Holding a rake. Part 3. Robbie told himself he wasn't going back. He even said it out loud in the car. But 2 nights after the news story broke, he found himself turning off the highway anyway, the steering wheel cold and slick under his palms. The closer he drove to Ashbrook Court, the more the air thickened with fog. The new development site was cordoned off with orange mesh fencing and blinking hazard lamps. Behind it, the woods waited, silent and black. He parked by the old street sign. The cul-de-sac looked abandoned, for sale boards leaning, porch lights dead. No kids' bikes, no barking dogs. Only the faint metallic scrape of wind through rain gutters. He left the engine running. Then he heard it. Scrape. Pause. Scrape. It was faint, but real, coming from beyond the fence. The construction site was easy to slip through, one of the plastic panels flapped loose. Mud sucked at his shoes as he crossed the churned ground. Floodlights cast a dull amber glow over the excavation pit. The crawl space was still open, an ugly mouth in the earth, half filled with water. Police tape flooded above it. He crouched at the edge. The smell of wet soil and rusted nails filled the air. His reflection wavered in the puddle at the bottom. Then, for a moment, it wasn't his reflection. It was the red-haired man's. Robbie jerked back, heartbeat slamming. "You dead," he whispered. "They found you. They buried you." A voice floated up from the dark, calm and close. "No need to be scared. The same words. 30 years apart, identical tone. Robbie stepped backward, mud sliding underfoot. His flashlight beam shook, catching on movement in the trees, a tall figure pushing a rake through the mist, slow and steady, leaves parting in neat rows. He turned and ran. The greenbelt hadn't changed. The same slope, the same blackberry thorns clawing his sleeves. His old fort still stood, collapsed to one wall of warped plywood. He tripped, fell hard, palm sinking into wet moss. For a moment he lay there, listening. The scraping had stopped. Then a whisper near his ear. "You never raked your side, Robbie." He lurched up. The fort wall was covered in something new, lines etched into the wood, hundreds of tiny scratches forming words. "Keep it clean. No need to be scared. Rake until it's quiet." His flashlight flickered, then died. Darkness pressed close. And then, faintly, the sound of a child crying. 2 voices. Then 3. Then silence. He stumbled out into the clearing. The fog had thickened so much he could barely see his own hands. A shape loomed ahead, the rake, standing upright again, exactly where it had been 30 years ago. Its handle leaned toward him, inviting. At its base lay the blue fabric strip they'd pulled from the dirt as kids. Robbie knelt. The ribbon was clean now, as if freshly washed. He picked it up, the fabric was warm. When he looked up, the red-haired man stood across from him, rake resting against his shoulder. Up close, the man looked older, less human. The skin beneath his eyes was as pale as bark. His mouth didn't move when he spoke. "Someone has to keep it tidy," the voice said. "They all leave a mess." Robbie swallowed. "You're not real. You made me." The man's head tilted. "Every time you remembered. Every time you looked back. You raked the memory clean and left me standing." Robbie shook his head. "You killed them." "No. I buried what no one wanted to see." The rake slid from his hands and landed softly in the mud between them. "Your turn." The fog rolled in, thick as cloth. The man was gone. Only the rake remained. Robbie stood there a long time. The woods breathed around him, damp and endless. He thought of the girls. Of Tyler. Of his mother's silence. Of every year he'd pretended not to remember. He wrapped his hands around the handle. The wood fit perfectly against his palms. He raked once, dragging the tines through the leaves. The sound was the same as it had always been, metal over earth, steady, patient. He raked again. And again. Each pull lighter, easier, until he could no longer feel the cold. 6 months later. The new development at Ashbrook Meadow opened on schedule. Families moved in, lawns were seeded, swing sets appeared. On clear mornings, homeowners sometimes heard an odd rhythm from the tree line, metal scraping softly, like a gardener working before dawn. One kid swore he'd seen a man with red hair near the drainage ditch. Another said it was a neighbor tending the community garden. Maintenance crews found no footprints. Only perfect rows of leaves, evenly raked, ending at the edge of the woods. And pinned under one of the neat piles, a single copper-red leaf, pressed flat beneath a small stone. Story 3, The DM from @J_04. Part 1. Portland drizzle made everything look like a filter. Wet asphalt gleamed under orange streetlights, and the cul-de-sac smelled of cedar, ozone, and last night's rain. Emily Patel, 16, hoodie up, earbuds in, waited for the bus under the sagging plexiglass shelter outside Ridgeway High. Her phone buzzed once, twice. @J_04, you made it? @J_04, you look cold lol. She smiled faintly, typing with her thumbs. M.P, bus just left. You're psychic now? The typing dots appeared almost instantly. @J_04, nah. Just guessing. They'd met online 2 months earlier, on a Discord server about indie horror games. Jay said he was 17, lived one town over, loved Silent Hill 2 and coding pixel art. He was funny, awkward in a good way. Emily had never actually seen his face, just a profile pic of a blurry hoodie and streetlight, the hood turned away from the camera. She'd asked once for a photo. He'd said, "I hate how I look. You'd ghost me." She'd replied, "Same." And somehow, that had felt intimate. It started small, late-night chats, in-jokes, memes. Then one evening, Jay had messaged, "What's your bus route again?" "I keep forgetting." She told him. It felt harmless. Now, he texted when she left school, when she got home, when she posted anything. The messages weren't creepy, exactly, more like he was always a few steps ahead of her. Sometimes she'd mention a song, and he'd already queued it on his Spotify link. Once she joked that her mom's night shift made her house monitor of ghosts. He'd replied, "Then I'll haunt with you." She'd laughed, sent a skull emoji. But last week, when she'd posted a photo of her backyard view, he'd replied, "Nice light in your kitchen window." And she hadn't mentioned being in the kitchen. That Friday, her mom was working the late shift again. The house smelled like frozen pizza and laundry detergent. Emily sprawled on the couch, scrolling TikTok. Rain blurred the world outside the window. Ping. At J_04, "So you alone again?" She smiled at the screen, thumbs hesitating. M.P, kinda. Mom's back late. At J_04, midnight again? M.P, yeah. How do you remember? At J_04, you told me last week. I remember everything about you. Her heart skipped. Cute, she thought. Then, maybe not. She typed, "That sounds stalky lol." At J_04, lol sorry. Habit. I just notice things. At J_04, like how you always leave your porch light on when it rains. Emily froze. She hadn't told him that. She minimized the chat, checked the front window, porch light glowing through the mist, reflecting in the glass. Her phone buzzed again. At J_04, don't freak out. At J_04, I'm near your street. Wanted to see you IRL finally. She sat upright, pulse climbing. M.P, wait what? No. At J_04, just to say hi. Not weird. Promise. M.P, J don't. At J_04, too late lol. The typing dots vanished. Outside, a car passed. Then silence. Emily locked the door, killed the porch light. An hour passed. Nothing. She told herself he'd been joking. By midnight, she'd convinced herself enough to get up for water. The fridge light spilled onto the tile. Her phone pinged from the counter. At J_04, cute PJ pants by the way. She dropped the glass. It shattered on the floor. Her hands shook as she texted back, "Stop it. How do you know that?" The reply came instantly. At J_04, look outside. Every part of her said don't. But she did. The porch light flicked on by itself, motion sensor. A figure stood just beyond it, hood up, face shadowed. Jay. Or someone wearing the same hoodie from his profile picture. He lifted a hand, not a wave. A gesture, small, deliberate. A point. At her. Emily bolted. She ran upstairs, slammed her bedroom door, locked it, grabbed her phone. She dialed 911, hands slick with sweat. A calm voice answered. "What's your emergency?" "There's someone outside my house," she whispered. "He's watching me. He knows my name. Stay on the line." "Do you have an alarm system?" "Yes. I'm turning it on now." "Good. Police are on their way. She punched the keypad on the wall, system armed. Then the doorbell rang. Once. Twice. 3 times. She peeked through the blinds. The porch was empty. A soft ping from her phone. At J_04, open the door and I'll explain. M.P, I called the cops. At J_04, good. They'll need to hear it too. M.P, hear what? At J_04, he's inside already. She backed into the corner of the room, breathing shallow. He's lying, she muttered. A floorboard creaked downstairs. Then another. The alarm didn't go off. The police arrived 8 minutes later. They found the door still locked, windows intact. No footprints on the porch, no car on the street. Emily was shaking, phone clutched to her chest. Miss Patel, are you sure someone was there? Yes. He messaged me. She showed them the DMS. The officer scrolled through, frowning. These look old. Last message is from 3 days ago. No, he texted me tonight. But the feed stopped at Tuesday. Everything else was gone. After they left, she sat awake until dawn. Her phone stayed on the counter, screen dark. She didn't touch it. When the morning light came through the blinds, she finally checked. Her Discord login had been signed out. Her Instagram too. Only one unread notification waited on the lock screen. New device signed in from Portland. Part 2. Monday morning felt unreal, like she'd been dropped into someone else's week. Her mom made coffee in silence, eyes swollen from night shift exhaustion. Emily sat at the counter, pretending to scroll through homework emails. She hadn't told her mom the full story. Only that she'd thought someone was outside. Her mom said, "You need to sleep, Em. You look pale." Emily managed a nod. What she didn't say was that every time she closed her eyes, she saw that porchlight silhouette, the hooded figure standing in the rain, pointing at her like a mirror come alive. At school, her friends tried to draw her back into the rhythm of gossip, TikTok trends, cafeteria noise. It almost worked, until she opened her locker. Her phone, which she'd left charging at home, was sitting on the top shelf. The same cracked corner, the same lock screen photo. She froze. Who? Something wrong? Jess, her lab partner, appeared beside her. Emily forced a smile. No, just thought I left this at home. She pocketed the phone quickly, pulse hammering. When she turned it on, it opened without Face ID. Someone had changed the passcode. And all her apps were rearranged. A new one sat alone on the home screen. An icon shaped like a hooded silhouette. Title, JChat. That afternoon she sat in the library, laptop open, headphones in but no music playing. She typed how to check if my phone's been hacked into Google, read the results, and felt the air thin around her. Remote access. Screen mirroring. IP shadowing. Every scenario led back to the same conclusion: someone had been inside her phone for months. Her hands trembled as she clicked through the settings. A secondary user profile was listed under administrator, active. Username at J_04. She tried deleting it. Action not permitted. The library's fluorescent lights hummed louder. Then a message popped up in the corner of her screen. At J_04, hey, missed you today. Her heart dropped. She hadn't opened Discord. She hadn't opened anything. She whispered to herself, this isn't real. Another message appeared. At J_04, you found my app. At J_04, finally. She slammed the laptop shut and practically ran home. Her mom's car wasn't in the driveway yet. The house felt wrong, colder, somehow. She set her backpack down, then heard it, a faint whispering sound, like someone talking too close to a mic. She followed it into the living room. Her TV was on. Static filled the screen. Then, faintly, an image sharpened, her own face. She was being streamed live from somewhere else. From her phone, she realized, sitting on the counter beside the toaster. She lunged and grabbed it, hit the power button, in nothing. The camera light stayed on, recording. She yanked the battery case off. Still on. Her reflection on the dark screen flickered, then blinked, though she hadn't. Her mom got home half an hour later to find Emily sitting on the couch, pale, the phone disassembled beside her. What happened? Someone hacked my phone, Emily said. It's not a prank. He's watching me. He's been watching for months. Her mom sighed. You mean that boy you talked to online? Emily nodded. Her mom rubbed her temples. I warned you, didn't I? You don't know who people are online. It's not just online, Emily whispered. He's here. Her mom glanced at the phone pieces. We'll take it to a store tomorrow, okay? Geek Squad, something. Get it wiped. Mom. It's fine. She forced a smile. I'll make tea. She turned to the kitchen. The kettle clicked on automatically before she touched it. Both of them froze. Then came a faint buzz from inside the power socket. A notification sound. Emily backed away. Mom, turn it off. Her mom hesitated, then the kettle light went out by itself. The house went silent again. That night, Emily lay awake in her room, laptop closed, phone locked in the kitchen drawer. Rain whispered against the windows. She told herself the world was rational. Electricity. Code. Glitches. Then her computer fan word on. She turned. The screen glowed faintly, a white cursor blinking on a black background. Text began to type itself. You don't answer anymore. So I found another way to talk. Look behind you. She spun around. Her bedroom window was open an inch, curtain stirring in the breeze. On the glass, traced in condensation, were 3 letters. J04. She didn't go to school the next day. Her mom took her to the police station downtown. A detective in plain clothes listened while Emily explained everything, the DMS, the phone, the silhouette. He nodded patiently, tapping notes on a tablet. You said the messages started in July? Yes. And he knew your address? Yes. He glanced at her mother, then back at her. We'll file a report. It sounds like a cyberstalker. If he's spoofing your camera, that's serious. Her mom asked, can you trace him? We'll try, he said. We've had a few similar cases. Could be the same guy. What kind of cases? Emily asked. The detective hesitated. Girls. All from different high schools. Same MO, a friendly online account, video game connection, blurry profile pic. He stops when they notice. Emily frowned. Stops how? He didn't answer right away. Just stops. The accounts go dark. No trace left. We can't tell if it's one person or a program copying itself. Her skin prickled. Program? Some kind of bot that learns patterns. Mimics conversation. But it behaves, oddly. Uses real GPS data. Real webcams. Her mom said, that's not a bot. That's someone. The detective sighed. Maybe. Either way, we'll run a sweep on your devices. Don't answer any unknown messages. Don't log in anywhere. Emily nodded, but she already knew it wouldn't matter. Because when she looked over the detective's shoulder, his tablet screen glitched for a second, static, then a flash of the hooded silhouette. Just long enough for her to see the username in the corner. At J_04, active. That night, she used her mom's laptop to check her school email. 1 unread message. No sender. Subject line, see you at UNI, Rumi. Part 3. A week later, Emily deleted every account she'd ever made. Discord, Instagram, TikTok, even her old Gmail from middle school, gone. She replaced her phone, changed her number, used a new laptop her mother bought on credit. The police still hadn't called back. Sometimes, that was the scariest part, not the noise, not the silhouette, but the silence afterward. It was like deleting him had deleted the whole world a little. By spring, life had begun to glue itself back together. She kept her head down, focused on exams, ignored friend requests. Graduation came and went in a blur of cheap gowns and wet confetti. She smiled for photos she didn't remember taking. That summer, a letter arrived in a thick white envelope. Congratulations, you've been accepted, Portland State University. Her mom cried. Emily pretended to. September came. New city, new dorm, new everything. The residence hall was bright, too clean, with posters about fire drills and community mixers. Her roommate hadn't arrived yet. Emily set up her half of the room, laptop on the desk, fairy lights along the wall. When she opened her computer for the first time, she told herself it was just a device. Just plastic and code. Not him. The OS setup asked for her name, Wi-Fi, and university email. Then, at the bottom of the screen, a box appeared she didn't remember seeing before. Import previous user settings? Her breath caught. She clicked no. The screen froze. Then flickered once. Welcome back, Em. She slammed the lid shut. Not again, she whispered. She unplugged it, left it on the floor, tried to focus on unpacking. But the air in the room felt wrong, a little too charged, like after lightning. When her new phone buzzed on the bed, she flinched. Unknown number, hey Rumi. She stared. Her chest tightened. No. Coincidence. Just the housing office messing around. She texted back, who is this? 3 dots appeared. Then vanished. Then appeared again. Then, J. The phone slipped from her hand, clattering to the floor. When she picked it up, the message thread was empty, no sender, no history. Just a new notification blinking at the top, screen mirroring active. The dorm light flickered. Her laptop chimed once from across the room, lid still shut. She went to it slowly. The fan was running. The screen glowed faintly from the seam, leaking pale blue light onto the desk. She lifted the lid an inch. Her own webcam light blinked on. Then, through the grainy static, her own face appeared, live feed, half a second delayed. Behind her reflection stood a second figure, hood up, watching from the doorway. She spun around. The door was open, hallway empty. She turned back to the screen. The figure was gone. Only her reflection remained, except now, it was smiling. And she wasn't. Campus security found her laptop powered on the next morning. The screen showed only a login prompt and one user profile at J_04, active. They assumed it was a prank, freshmen, tech clubs, bored coders. They boxed the computer with the others, labeled pending IT review. That afternoon, another student moved into Emily's old room. She unpacked her things, connected to the dorm Wi-Fi, and opened her browser for the first time. The cursor blinked in the search bar, then typed on its own. Hey. You look cold, LOL.